For great Pokemon TCG product and prices, check out ccgcastle.com.
Hello Pokemon fans, I'm Professor K for the Pokemon Evolutionaries, and today I am going to be profiling the deck that I took to the Fall 2016-2017 Regional Championships in Orlando, Florida. It was a huge event, 612 Masters in total, the largest regionals in the history of Pokemon. As far as I know, as far as what I was told, it was absolutely enormous. There was a lot of talented players there. I met a lot of people, a lot of fans that watched the channel. It was great meeting you all, to talk to you guys, to take pictures with you guys, sign autographs, and just have a good time together. It was a lot of fun, I have to say. So today I'm going to be profiling the deck that I took to regionals, and I like to refer to this deck as a Ninjabox deck. There is a variant of this deck that actually did place in the top 32 3 different times by 3 very talented players from Michigan, but my version is slightly different. I was trying more or less to be the counter deck to end all counter decks. And I'll explain it a bit more as we go here, but let's just get right into it. So we're gonna go into the Pokemon first. There is a wide assortment of Pokemon. There are 12 in total, and there's a lot of different ones. So first and foremost, the card that we're going to be looking at here that really just gets it all going here is Mew EX. Yes, it is legal. It was legal for the Orlando Regional Championships because of the Mew and Mewtwo box that was released in Barnes & Noble a bit earlier than what it was actually expected to. So Mew EX here has an ability called Versatile. You guys probably already know it if you've been playing for a long time. The Pokemon, this Pokemon can use the attacks of any Pokemon in play, both yours and your opponent's. Oh, I can't get this to center there. There we go. Yours and your opponent's, but you still need to have the necessary energy used to be able to attack. And it also has another attack there called Replace, where you can move as many energy attach your Pokemon to any of your other Pokemon as you like. So that does come in handy every now and then, but you're mostly going to be using this for Versatile to copy other Pokemon's attacks. Now, why would you want to copy other Pokemon's attacks? Why not just use the ones that you've got? Well, there's a reason for that. Number one, Mew EX is a Psychic type, so you can hit Mega Mewtwo for weakness, which I did, and I can't wait to tell you guys what happened here with this. It was fantastic. I think I already did actually in the recap video, but I love the move so much, it's so much fun. So, Mew EX here, Psychic type, that's a bonus. Not to mention, you can copy other Pokemon attacks that are on the bench, so if you have more than one type of Pokemon benched with more than one different attack, you can just keep switching attacks back and forth and making really good use of it. In my deck, I had 2 copies of Mew EX. Now, I do want to say that this deck was actually something that was created by myself and FlamingAxel. My buddy Raymond is his name. We both created this deck together. He came up with the actual concept, and then we kind of honed it down together and tested it. And I want to thank him for that, by the way. So go check out FlamingAxel. Really awesome dude. Thank you very much for testing with me, man. I do appreciate it. We kept the deck under wraps for the entire course of testing, and I want to thank you for that. So, 2 copies of Mew EX. There's a lot of different prints of it. There's the promo from X and Y 126. There's Dragon's Exalted Mew EX. There's Legendary Treasures Mew EX. There's a lot of variants of it, and these 2 just happen to be my favorite arts of all time. So that's what I went with. You guys are going to find this is going to be a very pretty deck. I can't help but bling out decks for regionals. And there is actually a couple cards missing, but I sold some cards too, so you'll see that as we go along. All right, so we got Mew EX here. We're going to copy some Pokemon's attacks. What kind of attacks do we want to copy? Well, here is one of them right here. Jolteon EX Flash Ray, 70 damage. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from basic Pokemon. So anything that's not an evolution can't hurt Jolteon EX. If we use Mew, they can't hurt Mew. So it's a really good way to kind of stall and still deal a decent amount of damage. This is kind of a weak Pokemon as well, 160 HP, Mew is 120, but Flash Ray is so good. If you want to use this particular card instead of Mew to attack with, you can do so and knock out things like Baby Yveltal. For 140 damage because of weakness, you're knocking it out as long as it doesn't have a Fighting Fury belt attached. With a Fighting Fury belt attached, you're dealing 160, almost knocking out an Yveltal EX, but there is still a way to do so. We'll get into that momentarily. So Jolteon here is used for that attack and that attack only, although Swift does go through everything as well, not affected by weakness, resistance, or any other effects on your opponent's active Pokemon, but it only does 30 damage, 40 with a Fighting Fury belt. Next up here is another tool that we have in Glaceon EX Crystal Ray. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from evolution Pokemon. So if you face decks like Vespiquen or Greninja or evolutions like Mega Evolutions, Mega Gardevoir, Mega Mewtwo, they can't hurt anything that uses Crystal Ray, whether that be Mew or Glaceon EX. So the idea, as you can see, is to just basically lock your opponent out of attacking and just wear them down. 3-shot a Mega Mewtwo EX, potentially 2-shot something that is weak to water as well, like Volcanion, for instance. So that's pretty neat. We got 1 copy of that. I wanted to have 2, and I wish I would have had 2, but I made some other really just kind of crazy calls to tech in things to make the difference, which I did actually make use out of one of them, but we'll get to that here momentarily. Also, we have a single copy of Regice. We're going to be using this for Resistance Blizzard, also does 70. There's a theme going on here, guys. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all effects of attacks except damage done, or including damage done to this Pokemon by Pokemon EX. So whether they're basic or mega, all Pokemon EX cannot damage Regice or anyone who uses that attack. So Megas also can't attack, basic EXs can't attack, so it's just kind of like a little complement. It's a mixture of Jolteon and Glaceon, except for it only applies to Pokemon EX and their Mega Evolutions. So Regice is a good little tool for that. I actually used this guy to completely stall out a game against Mega Rayquaza that did not play any Pokemon Ranger. It was fantastic. I just stayed with Regice and just kept attacking, Resistance Blizzard over and over. I put nothing on my bench. There was nothing she could do, and it just wore out that way. So this is a card that I kind of regret playing for the specific matchups I had, but I do think it's a card that I would like to keep in the deck. That card is Espeon EX. The reason for that, there's 2 actual attacks here that could be used in situations. Number 1 is Miraculous Shine. Devolve each of your opponent's evolved Pokemon and put the highest stage evolution card into your Pokemon, or to your opponent's hand. Oh my gosh. The other attack is Psyshock. For 70 damage, this attack's damage isn't affected by effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. So this goes through Carbink, this goes through Regice, it goes through Jolteons. And Miraculous Shine is kind of cool because if you damage a Greninja and you deal 70 damage onto it, and it's just sitting there waiting to evolve into a break, you can use Miraculous Shine, devolve that Greninja into Frogadier, and it is knocked out. So it's a cool little trick you could do against Greninja. I didn't get to pull off that one, but I did get to do something else, and that would be this card right here. Yes, it is the Shaymin EX promo from the Generations Elite Trainer Box. Now, Aroma of Gratitude. Once during your turn before you attack, you may heal 20 damage from each of your benched basic Pokemon. So, Water Shuriken does 60 damage to any Pokemon. This can heal 20 right off of it on the next turn. So it messes with the Shuriken numbers. But here's what's crazy. Floral Gain does 60 damage. Heal 20 damage and remove all special conditions from this Pokemon. So Greninja's weak to grass. That's 120. 140 with a Fighting Fury Belt. And it's also much more with a specific card we're going to get into momentarily. Let's just put it this way. I managed to one-shot a Greninja break with this card. It was fantastic. I love it. I don't know if I would keep the card in here after playing Regionals, because I only used it once, but it was really cool when I did it. Alright, now we get into my favorite tech card in the entire deck. It's fantastic. No one ever sees this coming. I love it. Magearna EX. Wait a minute, everybody knows Magearna. It's not that uncommon. Right. Mystic Heart ability. Prevent all effects of your opponent's attacks except damage done to each of your Pokemon that has any metal energy attached to it. Existing effects are not removed. That's all well and good. I mean, against Mega Scizor, yeah, they can't remove my special energy as long as I have metal energy attached. I can't be put to sleep, paralyzed, any of that stuff. Poison, burned if it were a thing. But what I used it for, and no one ever saw coming, was Soul Blaster. This is a good one. So during your next turn, this Pokemon Soul Blaster attack is base damage is 60 instead of 120. So here's what I did. This was so much fun. I did it twice, as a matter of fact. The first time I used this was against Mega Mewtwo. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, it's called Ninjabox because it plays Ninja Boy. So you guys know there's Ninja Boy in the deck. I had something benched. I believe it was an Espeon. And I had a Mew EX in the active, powered up and ready to go. I Ninja Boy'd the Espeon, threw down a Magearna. Now, my opponent had no energy on the bench whatsoever. It was all in the active. 2 DCE and 2 Psychic Energy. So he was powered that thing up. He was ready to start taking knockouts left and right. We both had 6 prizes left. The game had really just kind of started. It was only on like turn 4 or 5. And it was so awesome. I Ninja Boy'd into that Magearna. I used Mew's Versatile, copied Soul Blaster. Mew EX had a Fighting Fury belt. So Soul Blaster goes up to 130 damage. And due to weakness, 260 damage on that Mega Mewtwo EX, knocking it out in one shot. My opponent looked at me, he goes, well, I scoop, and I won the match. It was just glorious. And that actually was game 2 as well. So I won game 2 that fast and the match as well. So that was so much fun. I loved using Magearna as a surprise. The second time that I used it, I was playing Mega Gardevoir inside of Mega Rayquaza. Granted, it was kind of a funny deck, but she brought out her Mega Gardevoir thinking, all right, I'm gonna start taking some prizes because I've got a full bench and a powered up Mega Gardevoir and nothing else. I had an active Mew EX, powered up and ready to go. Ninja Boy into Magearna, Soul Blaster for 240 damage because when I attack with Magearna, Gardevoir is weak to metal. It was great. I knocked it out one shot. She did not see it coming. I left her speechless. This deck is all about surprises. This is the ultimate ninja deck. I loved playing it. It was so much fun. Even though it didn't win some matchups, we had some trouble against Garb, especially when it came to using Mew. I did dead draw a couple times, and it wasn't that fun. But against Mega Mewtwo was probably my worst matchup, even though it should be my best on paper. I did drop 2 of them of the 3 that I faced. I also have an auto loss to Giratina and Xerneas. Because it's too much, there's too much versatility in the deck. They can attack with Xerneas, which is a non-EX evolution Pokemon, and they can attack with Giratina, which is a basic EX Pokemon. So if I use Glaceon Crystal Ray, they can switch into Giratina and start damaging my Glaceon. If I attack with Jolteon on the Giratina, they can retreat, bring up Xerneas, and start attacking with Xerneas. So there's really no out. You just have to outspeed and hope for the best. I faced 1 and I lost against it. Oh, also, 2 more, we have some more Pokemon here, I'm sorry. We have 2 copies of Shaman EX because setup is just too good. You can't just, you know, you can't get away from this being a good card for draw, especially in a deck where you can dead draw. So Shaman for setup is the only reason why that is here, and I did use it quite a bit, as you can imagine. So there's 1 more Pokemon in the deck, and that is going to be 1 copy of Hoopa EX. Hoopa gets everything out except for Regice. So I think it's a super important staple in the deck, and I would have lost a lot of games without it. So I do recommend playing Hoopa in this deck. So as you can see, there's a lot of different types of Pokemon. We got Colorless, we got Metal, we got Psychic, we got Grass, we got Water, we got Lightning. This could almost be a Rainbow Road deck if it was playing Xerneas, but it's not. So it's just a crazy mixture of things, but I made it work. And it works more often than it doesn't. I just had some bad luck in a couple of matches. It was never a deck that let me down. All right, enough blathering about the Pokemon line, even though this deck requires a lot of explaining, because I'll tell you right now, guys, a regular player cannot pick up this deck and expect to do well with it. It's a complicated deck. There's a lot of situations where you have to know what to do and how to play this deck. If, for instance, you know, if you're new to the game and you don't realize what you're doing, you could actually Hoopa and put something on the bench that you want a Ninja Boy into later. I almost made that mistake at regionals. I did it in testing. This deck takes a lot of time to get used to. It takes a lot of strategy, a lot of practice. So I just want to make sure everyone is aware that a regular casual player will not be able to pick this deck up and play it right away. It takes a lot of thought, a lot of process, a lot of strategizing. This is a intermediate to advanced player deck. Just want to get that out there now for those of you that want to build it and try it out. Understand that this is not a novice deck. You can't pick this up and play it right away and expect to do well. All right, so with all that out of the way, we're going to get into the trainer lineup here. We've got 4 copies of Professor Sycamore. As I said, yes, I know the deck is blinged out. I don't expect you guys to do the same. I only bling out 1 deck, and that's all I do. The rest of the cards, I use regulars. And I only do it for tournaments, by the way, as well, like regionals. So 4 copies of Professor Sycamore. Discard your hand, draw 7. There's a lot of times that Sycamore's kind of hurt in this deck, but we have ways to get certain things back, so it's not necessarily the worst situation. We have 3 copies of N, Each player shuffles his or her hand into his or her deck. Each player draws a card for each of their remaining prize cards. This is the card you want to have early game because you want to be able to shuffle stuff back in instead of discarding things without having a lot of ways to get stuff back. An early Sycamore can really hurt. 2 copies of Lysander, being able to bring something off of the bench into the active and get something out of the active that you do not want to be there. So there's that. And I played 1 copy of Pokemon Ranger for Giratina specifically, and it turns out I never needed it. It's such a situational card. It's so good, but I never saw it when I needed to have it. So Ranger is a bit expendable in this deck, just like this Grass Shaman too. But I'm showing you how I played it so you guys can see what I played at regionals, card for card. I don't change my decks based upon what I think should be there, what should have been there. This is literally the 60 card list I played. Now, when I was talking to you earlier about being able to one-shot a Greninja Break, and now if my max damage is going to be 70, which is only 140, how did I do it? Giovanni's Scheme. This is our muscle band now in supporter form. During this turn, your Pokemon's attacks do 20 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon before applying weakness and resistance. So that 70 damage turns into 90, which also turns into 180 damage with weakness, one-shotting Greninja Break. So Giovanni actually helped me out quite a few times. It also helps the matchups where you're dealing 80 damage. That's 160. Now, if you deal 80 damage and then you're dealing 80 again with Giovanni, you're dealing 180 total damage, knocking out most major EXs in the game, whether that be Yveltal or Darkrai or 170 on Giratina, stuff like that. You're able to hit those knockouts in 2 shots instead of coming up just short of being able to do it. So Giovanni also helps out because you can also draw cards until you have 5 into your hand as well. If you're in a little bit of a pickle, you need some extra cards. We have 2 copies of Ninja Boy. As I said before, choose one of your basic Pokemon in play, search your deck for a basic Pokemon, and switch it with that Pokemon. Any attached cards, damage counters, special conditions, turns in play, and any other effects remain on the new Pokemon. Shuffle the first Pokemon into your deck. So Ninja Boy was just amazing in this deck. So much fun to play Ninja Boy into something that your opponent's not expecting, especially in game 1 when your opponent has no idea what's in your deck. People saw this, they were like, oh, okay, Mew, Jolteon, Glaceon, Regice, and Vileplume. Well, not exactly. This was a huge shock to people. This wasn't a shock, but the fact that I attacked with it was a shock. I love doing that. This is our most powerful attack in the entire field here. As you guys can see, 120 base damage. This is where our big damage is going to come from at the end of the game to win a big turn when your opponent thinks that you still have 2 more turns to attack. Also, I played 1 copy of Hex Maniac, mainly for Greninja. Unfortunately, every match I played against Greninja, which was 3 of them, Hex Maniac was prized. I never got to use it. It was the only thing I was concerned with for the most part. Hex Maniac just did not do it for me because of where it ended up. And that's just part of the luck when you play big events or any events at all, any kind of tournaments. So Hex Maniac, great card, just didn't help me in the Greninja matchup at all whatsoever. I won game 2. He won game 1, I won game 2, and game 3 went to time, but he took all of his prizes before time was up, so I could not pull it off. Anyways, that is it for supporters. Items, we've got 4 copies of VS Seeker. Put a supporter card from your discard pile into your hand. There's that. We have 4 copies of Trainer's Mail. Look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal a trainer card you find there except for Trainer's Mail. Put it into your hand, shuffle the other cards back into your deck. Trainer's Mail was a big reason why I was able to get a lot of the items I needed to get things going, especially a float stone in one of the games is what actually saved me the entire game. Now, I did have all gold Ultra Balls in here except for 1. This one I actually sold. There was a gold Ultra Ball here. This was a gold Ultra Ball. I sold it at regionals to a Brazilian player and made a little bit of extra money out of it. I gave him a really good deal. It was pretty damaged, but I did have more Ultra Balls than that, so I do need 2 more in order to really bling out this particular deck, but I'm not looking for them because they're too expensive. So there's 1 in there for now for the deck profile. All right, 3 copies of Fighting Fury Belt. The basic Pokemon this card is attached to gets 40 more HP, and the attacks do 10 more damage to the opponent's active Pokemon. This is the card that I was telling you about that just really saved me a lot of matchups, made me hit for numbers that really were beneficial to the deck, and won a lot of games for me that way. Only 3 of them, though. That's all I could fit in the deck. We don't play any evolutions, so this is perfect. Why not play it? Now, a lot of times this deck suffers because it takes 2 energy attachments, and if you go second, it can really, really hurt to go second. I wanted to play 4, but I only found room for 3 Crushing Hammer. Flip a coin if heads, discard an energy attached to one of your opponent's Pokemon. So if your opponent sets up and they attach an energy on turn 1, and it gets to your turn, you attach an energy, you have a Crushing Hammer in hand, you can hammer away one of their energies, slow down their strategies and their attack processes, and help you get through the game just an extra turn longer, which is really all this deck needs to get going and attach that second energy and start hitting for 70 damage and locking your opponent out of being able to attack you. So Crushing Hammer helped me out with that a lot. We have 2 copies of Floatstone to get out of the active if we can't get that Ninja Boy off and we start with something bad. For some reason, I kept starting with Espeon EX. I don't want to ever start with Espeon EX. I don't care if I start Jolteon or Mew, but nah, not Espeon. Like, Regice hurts, Shaman hurts, Magearna hurts, Shaman really hurts, Hoopa hurts extremely bad. I never started Hoopa, thank goodness for that. Glaceon hurts too because it's got a 2 retreat cost. It's very heavy. But next card here we have it is Escape Rope, because once again, getting out of the active is important sometimes. Each player switches his or her active Pokemon with one of his or her benched Pokemon. Your opponent switches first. If a player does not have a benched Pokemon, they do not have to switch because they cannot. Now, Sycamores can hurt, so we're going to play a copy of Special Charge because this deck, as you will find out very shortly, plays a lot of special energy. So you're going to shuffle 2 special energy cards from your discard pile back into your deck. There's that. We also play 1 copy of Super Rod because discarding Pokemon also hurts, and having something knocked out that you really need when you have such low copies of them also helps to get back in, especially when you do this combination. Your Regice gets knocked out because they Lysandered around it or whatever, brought it up before you could start using Resistance Blizzard. Oh look, I've got a Super Rod in hand. Play Super Rod, put Regice, and whatever else back into the deck. And then, oh, let's go ahead and Ninja Boy right back into Regice. It's beautiful. I love the strategy. I pulled it off a lot of times, and it was a lot of fun to be able to do that. So let's move some stuff around here because I'm actually running out of room on my regionals mat here. We have 2 copies of Parallel City. This is the stadium of choice for me. I actually use this more to parallel myself because, as you guys can see, there's some stuff on the bench that you don't want to be there, like Shaman and Hoopa. So you fill your bench, then you play Parallel City, turn it towards yourself, and throw away your Shamans and your Hoopa. And anything else that you happen to have benched that you didn't want to, like if you started the game at Espeon, you managed to get it back on the bench, you don't want it there, go ahead and just chuck it. So Parallel City was used for that. Against Greninja and Volcanion, I actually turned it this way to block the extra fire damage and water damage. I didn't face Volcanion, but when I do face it, I turn it the other way. I did turn it that way for Greninja. That's the only time I think I turned my stadium that way ever. So, oh yeah, no, I did it against Mega Rayquaza too. That's right, I did do it against Mega Rayquaza. So, I'm wrong there. All right, there's our 2 stadiums. Now our energy lineup is fairly simple and straightforward. 4 copies of double colorless energy, because everything here has a double colorless in it somewhere. Jolteon, Glaceon, Regice, Espeon, Shaman, Magearna, Shaman all have double colorless energy requirements if you really wanted the Sky Return. I don't recommend you do that. You're never going to power up a Hoopa, and Mew uses everything, and it also needs DCE to use all these other attacks. So everybody else uses DCE that you're intending to attack with. Throw that there. And we also have 4 copies of Rainbow Energy. This is the Team Rocket variation. I love this Rainbow Energy. It is holographic, as you can see there. Love them, love them, love them. Rainbow Energy, attach Rainbow Energy to one of your Pokemon while in play. Rainbow Energy counts as every type of basic energy that only provides 1 energy at a time. It doesn't count as a basic energy card when not in play. When you attach this card from your hand to one of your Pokemon, it does 10 damage to them. So you are going to damage them by 10, but you got such low HP Pokemon, you're going to get one-shotted by most things anyway. And 10 damage doesn't make that much difference on 160. It doesn't make that much difference on 120. It can make a difference on 170, but for the most part, it doesn't. So 4 copies of Rainbow Energy. You can use everything. You attach a Rainbow Energy to Mew and a double colorless, you can use every single attack that you see here on any of these 7 Pokemon right here. I mean, it's beautiful. I love it. And also to help that increase that consistency just a little bit, we play 1 each of Water and Lightning Energy. I did use it a few times, like on Regice, and I did use it on Jolteon a couple of times. to not have to deal that damage and get the attacks off. And it helps the consistency because that gives you 6 basic energy cards. When I say basic, I mean they play as like basic energy cards to be able to get those attacks off. So when you do get your first turn and you get a double colorless in hand, that's what you want to attach first. Then start moving on to your rainbow or your basic energy, because these are the ones that you're going to be able to get to just a little bit easier. So this is the deck, guys. This is what I ran at the 2016-2017 Fall Regionals in Orlando, Florida. It's a fun deck. It looks absolutely crazy, I know, but I'm telling you, it works way more often than it doesn't, especially if you know how to play the deck correctly. I did test this deck a lot, and I played a lot of games with it, so I got very familiar with it. I can tell you the first time I picked it up, I was like, this deck is terrible. I don't know why anyone would even consider playing this deck. It's absolute garbage. No. Once you realize how to play your matchups, you need to be very familiar with what you're expecting to see. I played against every deck I could imagine was going to be at the Florida Regionals, and I gotta tell you, the 2 that I lost to were huge shocks because Mega Mewtwo was a deck that I completely destroyed in testing. Mew was just too powerful, and I always set up before Garb got out, but for some reason Garb kept beating me at the physical tournament, but that happens. You know, you never know what's gonna happen with somebody else's deck, or with your own deck. You could brick like crazy. Even if you have consistency for days, it doesn't even make a difference, so you never know what's going to happen. I did lose to 2 Mega Mewtwo's. I lost to a Giratina, Xerneas, which is an auto loss. I accept that 100%. I was not expecting to win that matchup. Unfortunately, that's the match that knocked me off the chance of being able to get top 32, because at that point, I was 5-2. Yes, I was 5-2. And no, I was 4-2. It was 4-2. Yeah, 4-2. I was like, all right, I still have a chance. I just got to win 3 more matches. Nope, it didn't happen. So that knocked me out. And then my very last match, when I could have gone 6-3, I went 5-4 because of Greninja. I won, like I said, the second game without an issue. Third game, I just couldn't get going. I don't know what happened, but it happens. Your deck bricks from time to time. So it's a fun deck. If you're an experienced player, I recommend building it and trying it. It's really a lot of fun. You have so many good matchups against things. Like I said, the only 2 tough matchups that I really could see happening are Xerneas, Giratina, and Mega Scizor. Only if you don't get Magearna set up. If you get Magearna set up, it's really not a problem. You're just going to use Glaceon and Regice and just start wrecking house. This is going to be what you're going to want to use more than anything, and you know, with Mew as well. Everything else you're going to want to pretty much just chuck out, except for Magearna on the bench. And, you know, do what you can to make the matchup work in your favor. So anyways, guys, enough about this deck. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the profile. If you did, be sure to hit that like button, comment down below, and of course subscribe for more TCG content here on the Pokemon Evolutionaries. And stay tuned for Battle Frontier Friday, not tomorrow, but next Friday, against the deck that N used at Regionals, which is not exactly the same kind of deck, but it has some of the same premises, and we actually share a couple of Pokemon. In particular, these 2. So there's more to it than that. Don't worry. It's actually a really good deck that myself and Professor A built from the ground up ourselves. And it didn't do quite as well as what it could have, but it is what it is. So stay tuned for that, and we hope to see you guys there. So until next time, guys, I'm Professor K for the Pokemon Evolutionaries. You all take care and have a fantastic day.